Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. January 5th, 2008. We're at the Rogers Centre in Toronto, Canada for the second ever installment of the International Bowl. This matchup features a 7-5 Rutgers team against a 7-5 Ball State team. And this game is a big deal for Ball State. For any team to go bowling is an accomplishment in itself, even though it's not as big of an accomplishment nowadays with 10,000 bowl games. But for Ball State to go bowling was a huge deal. This was a team that hadn't had a winning record in over a decade, as the last time they had a winning record and made it to a bowl game was all the way back in 1996, when they played in the Las Vegas Bowl. And if that wasn't big enough for Ball State, they were looking for their first bowl win ever. Now it didn't work out that way for the Cardinals, as they wound up losing this game by a final score of 52-30, with Ray Rice recording 279 yards and easily winning the game's MVP. But despite the loss, this game was great exposure for the program, and a great experience for the players as they got to play outside of the United States. However, what you might not realize is that this was not the first time that Ball State was scheduled to play an international game, because in 1990, they were set to travel all the way to Ireland to play a game overseas, and literally the month that the game was supposed to happen, it got cancelled. Seriously, imagine planning a game all the way out in Ireland and it gets called off 3 weeks before. Well, that's what happened to Ball State back in 1990. And this is the story behind the bizarre controversy. Before I talk about the game in question, we need some context to understand college football's history in Ireland, as well as how Ball State was doing entering what should have been a pivotal matchup that could have brought tons of exposure to the mid-major program. Entering the 1990 season, the expectations seemed to be pretty high for the Cardinals. They were coming off of back-to-back winning seasons, and the year before in 1989, won the MAC with a 6-1-1 record in conference play, and got to make it to their first bowl game in program history, where they lost 27-6 to Fresno State in the California Bowl. Yes, they had a new starting quarterback in Mike New after losing their starting quarterback David Riley, who was graduating and was named the MAC Offensive Player of the Year after finishing third in the conference in passing yards, second in passing touchdowns, and first in completion percentage. But even though this loss was obviously a big one on paper, people expected Ball State to recover from this and play well. And to their credit, they did just that. Granted, they didn't do it with a great offense. They finished the season scoring just 18.5 points per game, and through the first 10 games of the season, only scored more than 20 points in a game twice, with one of those being against a 1AA school in Indiana State. The offense was only 87th out of 107 teams in college football, finishing in the bottom 20%. Yet despite this, they were 6-4 through 10 weeks, and as you probably guessed, they did it on the strength of their defense, which finished the season allowing just 11 points per game. By the time the season ended, Ball State had the second best defense in all of college football from a points allowed standpoint, with the only defense better than that being Clemson, which finished the season allowing a mere 9.1 points per game. They shut out 2 opponents, shutting out Indiana State and Kent State. They held 2 more opponents to just 3 points, with those being Illinois State and Central Michigan. And in half of their first 10 games, their opponent did not score more than 6 points. If Ball State scored a singular touchdown with an extra point in every single game and nothing more, then entering the final week of the season, they'd be competing for the right to be bowl eligible. That's how good their defense was. To put their great defense into some more perspective, in 1990, Ball State ranked 87th in total offense. The team that ranked 86th was Cal State Fullerton. Cal State Fullerton finished the season with a 1-11 record, and their lone win was against Sonoma State, a Division II school in the Northern California Athletic Conference. Again, Ball State was 6-4 through 10 weeks. And their defense was so good that one of their players, defensive back Blaine Bishop, was named an all-conference member, and would eventually get drafted by the Houston Oilers in the 8th round of the 1993 NFL Draft, playing a decade in the NFL, making it to 4 Pro Bowls, and being named the second-team All-Pro in 2000. Not too shabby. Their final game of the season seemed like a cakewalk. It was a matchup against the Ohio Bobcats, who quite literally were one of the worst teams in all of football. They entered this game with a record of 1-8-1, failing to win a single game in conference play. Their lone win was a 42-32 victory against Tennessee Tech, a team outside of Division 1A. They were so bad that at the start of the month of November, they got shut out 27-0 by Youngstown State, a team outside of Division 1A. Imagine not only losing to a school in a division lower than you, but getting shut out by them. Their offense, which finished the season averaging 14.7 points per game and ended the season ranked 104th out of 107 teams, was going up against that fierce Ball State defense. So what's so special about this game and apparent mismatch, other than the fact that this was the end of the regular season? Well, this game was not scheduled to be played in Indiana, nor was this game scheduled to be played in Ohio. This game was scheduled to be played 3,500 miles away, and was scheduled to be played all the way out in Killarney, Ireland. As crazy as the idea of playing a game in Ireland seemed, this was not the NCAA's first time playing a game over there. What you're watching right now is footage from the 1989 Emerald Isle Classic held in Dublin between Pittsburgh and Rutgers. Pittsburgh won the game 46-29, and this was the second straight year that a game was held in Ireland, with the game between Boston College and Army being played in 1988 and drawing over 42,000 spectators. In 1990, however, a new game, almost a spin-off of sorts on the Emerald Isle Classic, was going to be held in Killarney at Fitzpatrick Stadium. There was no Emerald Isle Classic scheduled for 1990, and the Irish Tourism Bureau, after seeing the success of the series thus far, didn't want that gap in there. So they created the Shamrock Crystal Bowl, and made a deal with Ball State and Ohio to have them play there. Now the first question you might be asking yourself is this, and it's an incredibly valid one. Of all the schools you could have picked, why the heck would you pick Ball State and Ohio? Why are you picking two mid-majors that no one knows about and don't have strong alumni groups, especially overseas, to play a game in Ireland? Well, Jim Abley, the president of the sports marketing group, which was the organizer of the event, said that they wanted to have lower-level programs come over. As he said, "I wanted the support of the new thinking of the NCAA that all size schools have the opportunity to be in this type of game." I'm laughing at the idea that the NCAA ever thought that smaller mid-major schools deserve a shot to play in anything big, but whatever. The director of the game, Paddy O'Connor, was thrilled about this announcement, saying there is a real interest in American football developing throughout Europe, and Ireland is a part of that. Weekly NFL games and highlight shows are on television. That is bringing tremendous credibility, insight into the rules, and a lot of young people are becoming acquainted with what goes into the game. We've reached the stage where the best way to promote football is to have teams actually come over and play the game. And apparently, when Ball State was approached about this opportunity, it took Coach about 5 seconds to say yes. Other Ball State teams had played internationally in Europe before. The basketball team did a summer trip in the Netherlands and Belgium in August of 1989, and the golf team frequently played in Scotland and England. But this was the football team's first foray into playing internationally. This was a giant opportunity, and even though the Cardinals were going to lose money from this, especially since they were losing gate receipts from the fact that this game was originally scheduled to be at home, athletic director Don Purvis didn't really care about that, saying the public relations end is a benefit that is inherent in this type of venture. So everything was good to go, right? Well, to the shock of no one with a brain, the organizers quickly ran into a problem when they realized that they scheduled Ball State and Ohio in November, the week before Thanksgiving, in the middle of nowhere in Ireland. Everything about the planning and preparation for this game was an utter disaster. For one, I'm not sure how anyone expected that this game was going to make money. The Emerald Isle Classic was held in Dublin between two relatively big teams in Pitt and Rutgers. That game drew about 18,000 people. For this game between Ball State and Ohio held in Killarney, a place with a population of around 9,000 people at the time, and a place over 200 miles away from Dublin, they were expecting 25,000 people. I have no clue how that math checks out. That is incredibly optimistic. That's like me saying instead of playing this bowl game in Phoenix between two Power 5 teams, I'm going to play it 3 hours away from Phoenix in the middle of the desert where no one lives and have two Group of 5 teams playing it, and I think that bowl game will draw a better crowd. That just doesn't make any logical sense. How could it? And not only were they expecting 25,000 people, but they weren't going to make any money off of the tickets because kids were getting in for $1, and no tickets would cost more than $20. Keep in mind that no tickets at the Emerald Isle Classic cost more than $40, because that makes complete sense. A good chunk of the attendance for the game was based on the schools taking their alumni and getting people to join travel parties. In 1988, when Boston College played Army, the two schools combined to fly over 8,000 people over. In 1989, Pitt and Rutgers combined to take 2,800 people over. Guess how many people Ball State and Ohio had, considering the fact that this was the week before Thanksgiving, and considering the rather small sizes of their fan bases. If you guessed a measly 500 people, congratulations, you're still way off, because the two schools combined for 227 people. 227. And it wasn't entirely clear But one report said of the 227 people, the 75 members of the Ball State football team were included in that number. That is absolutely abysmal. Now, Ball State insisted that they tried their hardest to get people to come, saying, "We worked very hard to promote the game and ensure its success. We mailed out 5,000 brochures. We had stories about the trip twice in our alumni magazine. We made 20 presentations to alumni groups. We ran messages on the scoreboard during all of our home football games. And we initially called a press conference to promote the game." But the promoters refused to believe that Ball State was putting in a good faith effort. James Abley, the president of the sports marketing group, said quite bluntly, "There was a half-hearted effort at best. We went to both schools prior to extend an invitation, and we had every reason to believe that 400 people would certainly be attainable from schools of that size. We believe that with any real effort, those numbers could easily have been attained, and we wouldn't be in this position today." It was now the start of November. The first group of people was set to leave for Ireland in 11 days, keeping in mind that 227 people signed up for a game that was projected to get 25,000 people. And by this point, the promoters were panicking, because they realized that this game was about to be a massive money loss. Who would have thought that scheduling Ball State and Ohio to play a game in the middle of nowhere in Ireland that had dirt cheap tickets, that was reliant on alumni from those schools traveling 3,500 miles right before Thanksgiving, was going to fail? I know, it's so shocking. With that, the promoters demanded that the schools, who were already set to lose money from this, pitch in another $150,000 to cover the cost. That was the last chance to save the game. Both schools had to pony up another 6 figures in cash, which was a lot for a mid-major back in 1990. And when the schools refused, the promoters, a mere 11 days before the first group was set to leave, canceled the game. Ball State and Ohio would be playing stateside, and would no longer be playing in Ireland. Naturally, everyone was disappointed about the outcome. Carl Benson, the commissioner of the MAC, said on the cancellation, "It's unfortunate this has occurred at such a late date, and that the game will not be played in Ireland. Both universities look forward to the trip as a great opportunity for their student athletes and fans." Obviously, everyone is disappointed. Don Purvis, the athletic director for Ball State, said that they were disappointed, that this was denying the student athletes, fans, and band members a tremendous educational experience, and that the school was looking at legal action. And he went one step further, saying 11 days before the first group was to leave, the promoters said he couldn't come up with the money. They did not fulfill their obligation. In other words, if you were ever wondering what the equivalent of the Fire Festival would be for college football, this would be it. The game was held at Ball State, and the Cardinals prevailed 23-6, ending their season on a 4-game winning streak and showcasing their defensive dominance one more time to cap off the year. And Ireland would not host another college football game for a few more years after that. They hosted a battle between Notre Dame and Navy in 1996, and hosted some battles in the 2010s, with Northwestern and Nebraska set to play there in 2022, and Navy and Notre Dame once again set to play over there in 2023. At least now, it seems like all the kinks in the system have worked out, and that something like what happened with Ball State and Ohio in 1990 won't happen again. But let this be a lesson to all organizers of college football games trying to organize games internationally. A good piece of advice would be to think of what the organizers of this game did, and then do the exact opposite. Because if you put yourselves in a position where you're hundreds of thousands of dollars short less than 2 weeks before the game, because of your absolutely delusional planning and lack of understanding as to how the world works, you can't exactly be surprised when this game backfires. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.